This video is made for adult collectors because, oh my goodness, a new video game's coming out sometime soon. I don't know.
I've been feeling weird, I can't seem to focus good enough. Nothing's really clear, sometimes it could be a little tough. I just need to feel like the end's in sight for me. But let's be really real, anxiety can foggy all this stuff.
So these just kind of showed up at 7:50 a.m. on a Monday, but hey, I have them now and god damn, they're good. This was purchased at a store in Windsor, Ontario called Here to Serve You, for those who are wondering, though I'm not sure if it's still in stock and I don't know what their shipping is like outside of Canada, but you know. Reactivate is a game for Transformers coming out potentially at the end of next year. The marketing for the game hasn't fully started yet, and games take forever to make, so I'd rather them take their time rather than rush things out. So please be careful with looking at info on the game right now. There's a lot of misinformation going around, especially considering that we know nothing. And as such, I won't be talking about the game much in this video as we don't know anything. Like everything you know, I also know as well, so you don't have to tell me in the comments because I know someone's gonna be like, well, actually this, I know. However, the only reason I'm disappointed with the lack of footage is because I can't make a cool transition intro that I would normally do with gamer toys. Pain. So this 2-pack comes with Bumblebee and Starscream, both brand new molds sharing no parts with any other toys, so it's nice to get a fresh design for B and what is probably the best G1 styled Starscream toy in my opinion. Let's start small with Bumblebee, the mold I was the most excited about when all 4 of these toys were shown off. Man, he looks cool. The design is like nothing we've ever seen when it comes to Bumblebee, and it reminds me of like Classics B a little bit in how round it is. I think my biggest gripe design wise is the chin strap and the long neck. It feels like an odd combo and something I'm gonna definitely have to get used to. I adore all the sculpting. They definitely went above and beyond with filling out all the details on this toy, and there's a healthy amount of paint. He does have the asymmetrical thing, but it's less prominent on B than it is on Starscream, and I kind of wish it was more prominent on Bumblebee. I very much like the scorching, so it would have been nice to see more of it here. He also does his movie door wings thing, which is neat. I also very much like how they made an effort to fill out most, not all, but most of the hollow spaces on this toy. Like the back of the legs are hollow, but due to how it transforms, it fills in. Starscream and Soundwave do this same sort of thing too, which makes them, well, I'd assume Soundwave, I don't have him yet, but it makes them feel more complete. Bumblebee also has very, 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 very small SMGs. They're so tiny. Though they are small, I feel it's for this specific reason. They store on his shoulders or under his arms. That is a really cool piece of storage for me. That's also how you get them shoved into the alt mode during transformation, so the small size makes sense in that regard. Now, I think everyone's just been waiting for Starscream, so let's get to him. Man, he's good. Mine has ever so slightly loose ankles, which is a pain, but I'll fix those later. Personally, I love the asymmetrical look. I know that's been a debate between some people not liking it or liking it, and I'm pretty sure they'll do a clean version at some point. But it looks like an explosion went off on the left side and Ratchet just used whatever to fix him up. It knocks the Earthrise one out of the water. It feels more solid than the Bumblebee movie ones, and it's more interesting to transform than the Siege ones, in my opinion again. He's also a tall Voyager, coming in at a height taller than most others, minus 102. They're about the same height. I love the head. That's my favorite Starscream head other than the movie ones. It's so clean and concise, though I have a bit of blue overspray from the eyes on the top of the head on mine. I could scratch that off, but it is annoying. The wings are cool because they can pose around, they can flap back and forth and spin around, and you can also rotate them to give him like the Dreadwing look from Prime, which is something you can do if you want to do it. The backpack compresses nicely, though the black section doesn't tab in super well. There are tabs, but I find it moves a lot when you mess around with it. I do like how they painted both sides of the intakes and the shoulder stack thingies, meaning in either mode they're painted upright. And he has his null rays, or whatever they're called in the game, attached to his arm. Plastic quality wise on both, it feels pretty good. Like it sits between 102 and like Dragon Megatron and Rodimus. It's better than 102, but closer to Dragon Megatron and Rodimus. Almost the same feeling as like Blitzwing in a way. They're also pretty well articulated for what they are. Bumblebee has 2 limitations that I'll show off in a bit, but just take a look. So the articulation is where we start to get into a couple of the issues I have with these toys. They're not like deal breakers by any means, but they are there and they are kind of annoying. So we'll start with Bumblebee. Bumblebees are, well, let's just get his guns out of his hands. Bumblebee's articulation is great in the upper body and great in the lower body, but horrible in the midsection because there's no waist joint. I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. There is no waist joint. Due to how all of this has to clip into here and stay in place, which sometimes it does just come undone, it's, you know, there's no space for it. And it would have been nice if they were able to engineer like a waist joint below this and maybe make this piece smaller or something. But yeah, he doesn't have a waist joint. Little disappointing. Anyways, the head is extremely mobile because it's on a ball joint. It can rotate left and right. You don't have very much tilt, but he can look up all the way. So if you want to get him lying down in like a sniper pose, you can do that. These shoulders can rotate. They can go out that far, and then they can go out that far. The shoulder pads move independently from the shoulders. It's got a ball joint at the elbow, so that's your bicep swivel and your 90 degrees. Nothing at the wrist, nothing at the waist. Now the hips as well. They can only go forward about that far due to how this is sculpted. You can move this around a little bit and get it to kick up that far if you want to like make it look like he's spread out a little bit. But yeah, it does the Siege Prime thing where it only goes about that far. That's a little disappointing. They do go out that far though. He can do the full splits. Thigh rotation, double mushroom peg, which is always nice. 90-degree bend at the knee, and then the ankles can go down a tad bit. They can go up a tad bit. You have an ankle tilt, but you also have ankle swivel. That's pretty cool. You don't see that very often. It is just a ball joint in there, but like that's something you don't see very often on a toy. And I kind of like I feel like that, to me, that kind of makes up a little bit for the lack of a waist joint, but I still don't like how the hips can only go forward that far. But that's Bumblebee. He's still pretty posable. This is a little bit more posable, but I have more fun with this toy, honestly. Now, Starscream. Let's zoom out a little bit. Starscream is full of stuff as well, but there's the caveat of the backpack, which I mentioned earlier, and then these, which I'll get to in a second. But the head can look left, right, up, down. Oops, up, down. It's on a ball joint. It can tilt, though, which is nice. Oh, that's the first time that's ever come untabbed when I move the head. Interesting. Shoulders can do a full 360. The wings do get in the way. They can go out about that far because of the shoulder pads. However, you can rotate the arm around like this to get it out further if you want, and it doesn't look terrible, at least to me anyways. Bicep rotation, single jointed elbows, waist rotation, not wrist, waist rotation, that's nice. Hips can go forward that far. They can go back that far. They can go in and out. These move and kind of stay in place when you're moving the hips, but they can also move independently, which I think is really cool. You have thigh rotation. Oops, yeah, see this compressed. You have your knee bend, and the ankles can go forward a little bit. They can go back, and he's got ankle tilt. Now, these thruster pieces right here fold out to fill out the legs. I love that. I think that's great. However, they don't lock, so sometimes you just find yourself pushing them in when you pick him up. You're like, oh, damn it, there it goes. And that can be a tiny bit annoying at times. You just have to know where to grab the legs. It's usually when you grab a leg to bend a knee, you just grab it and bend the knee, right? But on Starscream here, you have to grab it like this and bend the knee, as opposed to grabbing it like this, otherwise you compress those. Unless you're okay with that. Now, one thing I do want to point out that I think is very, very cool on Starscream. This isn't on Bumblebee, but it's on Starscream. Every single, like, scorched piece you see on here, so all the black, is a completely new piece. The sculpting on this is different from the sculpting on this. Same with the biceps. Same with the shoulder pads, I believe, are the same. But same with the shoulders themselves, the wing. What else is different? Oh, and there's panels on the back that are different as well. That's really cool. That means those are all individually sculpted parts, and I think that's really neat, and that probably adds to why he's just so expensive. But yeah, that's just very cool. So that's the robots. They feel hella good and nice to mess with. Now let's make them vehicles. Now let's do transformations, starting with... Oh, he fell. Starting with Bumblebee. Because boy, is this something you've never seen before. So to get started, we're just going to actually plug the guns in because I want to store them in the alt mode because I want to show you how that works. So these just peg in with the handles directly into the back of his forearms. There are dedicated slots for them. So we're going to rotate the arms like that and just sort of get this all situated, shoulder pads down like so. And then we're just going to leave the arms like that. Next, what you want to do is you want to come back here. You want to open this section up. Now this is where it starts to look complicated. It's not complicated. It's very fun. That I think it was BMAC made a point at the stream when they announced these to tell us that these things were extra engineered, and they are extra engineered. So you just pull this up and then take the whole top torso and bring it out. Bring this down. It doesn't tab in, but it sits on top of 2 tabs. So you bring that down like that, fold the head up, rotate this entire section around, and it will snap into place. And then I would honestly leave the grill out for now because you're gonna have to peg some stuff in later, but that's how you do the roof of the car. That was pretty neat how it all just compresses. Now let's do the legs. Don't do that just yet. Open these sections up, bring these out. Now, one interesting thing about these wheels here is if you look very closely, you'll see the knee pads. When I fold this in, it pops the knee pad out. It's like faux automorph. It's pretty neat. It's not spring loaded or anything like that, so it's not gonna break over time, but it is still pretty cool. Anyways, you rotate the feet in, zoom out so people can see what you're doing. Rotate the feet in. That is something they didn't do on the stream and it looked weird. And I remember distinctly saying that I thought the feet sticking out the back looked weird. It's because they didn't rotate it. So you get all that situated, then you fold the legs in on themselves and they will peg into the back like so. Peg them into the back. Find the peg, there we go. And then you just want to sort of compress it in a little bit so that this lines up. Basically, when you peg the legs in, the grill is like this. There needs to be a gap between the grill and the back of the car where his crotch is kind of showing. That means you've lined all this up correctly. Now we get the arms in place. So you just rotate them into the cavities underneath here. Just get them all shoved in there. And then what you want to do is you want to bring the wheels forward, peg them in, peg them in, there we go. And then peg the grill over top to keep it all snug and in place. And then there are 2 tabs on either side of the arms. So you tab them in, flip the grill back around, and then close the doors. Now the doors don't like to close at first, and I thought I had a problem, but no, there's a tiny little lip. You can see it, it's right there. That's supposed to go under the window. So you just take it and just sort of like push it under while you're closing the door. So you push down and in, and now the door shuts. So it's just, there's a little lip instructions don't point out that you need to know about. But there's Bumblebee. That's a very, very compact and fun transformation to do once you get the hang of it. Again, like I said, the first time I did it, it was kind of confusing, but I figured it out. Now let's do Starscream. Now, if you've ever transformed the RID 2015 Warriors, like the Warrior class Starscream Skywarp, and I don't think they did a Thundercracker, but if you've ever transformed that, arms and the legs are very, very similar. They're not the same, but they do borrow some engineering tropes. And honestly, that deluxe wasn't bad. So like, I'm okay. Or sorry, that Warrior, because they called them Warriors back then, wasn't that bad. So I'm going to start by straightening out the wings, getting all this situated down here. We're going to pull the head up and forward, rotate, fold it in, make sure the face is completely flat, close it up, and then rotate this all out and fold this up. That has like sort of a masterpiece feel to it. Like that feels like MP11 a little bit, just a little bit. Fold up the wrists, take out the null rays and drop them. Take out the null, come on. There we go. Rotate the arms and then take them, unpeg them from the chest section and bring them down. So let's do the same on that side. And then there are little wings in here that you fold down as well. Then flip the chests in, they will clip into place and sit those wings into place. Now, speaking of wings, let's do the other wings. So you want to take this entire section and unfold it, just like that. It's on a series of hinges. Now to rotate the wings, you want to make sure that this red piece is flat. That way you have enough room to rotate the wings around. Then you want to bring this section and straighten it all out and just, oops, don't unpeg that. And then fold this all down and in and compress it. This should tab into itself here. These little gaps will sit over the shoulder pads like so. And then the arms, as I haven't rotated that one, will peg into, that one's already done it, will peg into the wings. So once you have all that done, we can work on the legs. So you want to take these and extend them forward, all RID 2015 like, fold up the heels and fold down the toes. These sections right here, you fold the wings down and they will just peg in underneath the black parts. We're gonna fold up the rear fins and then just collapse these forward. And they will peg in underneath, right in that dark chasm right there. And then all you gotta do now is plug the null rays in. Any which way, it honestly doesn't matter. And there you have Starscream. So yeah, they can be a bit fiddly. Whoa, what was that? They can be a bit fiddly. They can be they can be a bit fiddly at times in certain areas. Bumblebee, I can't speak English. Bumblebee feels like they tried to cram in as much as possible into the toy, and it both works and doesn't, but that being said, these are killer alt modes. Bumblebee's off-road beach buggy looking thing feels like a mix between Classics and Rise of the Beast with how round and bubbly it is and yet how rugged it looks. The wheels are lifted, the roll cage is on the outside, the beach buggy styled headlights, the massive spoiler, the boost pack on the back. It's such a neat combination of different aspects of car in one spot, and I think it works quite well. And the paint really comes across a lot nicer in the vehicle mode than the robot mode with the asymmetrical door, though I wish there was some more scorching on the hood. Though I don't know if that's like a plastic thing or whatever, but it would have been nice to see a bit more of that black carried over onto the hood. Also, the feet in the showcase and the stock images we got weren't flipped around. They store better in person. Starscream compresses so well into a relatively flat jet. It's still a robot hanging out underneath the bottom, but it cleans up quite nicely. The asymmetry also isn't lost here in this mode either. They still make it feel like he was blown up on the left side because all the damage is on the one side. I'm disappointed he doesn't have any landing gear though. He just kind of sits on the painted parts of the legs, which is a bit pain. And there's no stand port. But all in all, I love this 2-pack so far. I do have my complaints, but for the first toys to release for this upcoming game and subsequent game toy line, like these are preview toys after all, I think these do a bang up job at showing us what's to come and giving us 2 new molds that wouldn't have existed otherwise. I do recommend them. The pack seems a bit expensive, and yes, they are, though I can see why with the paint, plastic quality level of engineering, new packaging, like all this sort of stuff, the splash damage license. I understand why it's expensive, and if you're okay with that, because I'm okay with paying that much for these, then I would highly recommend getting it. But that's my look at Bumblebee and Starscream from Transformers Reactivate. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.